Welcome back. We have talked about the beginning of communication in the last video, and now we're going to move on to the basics. I want to introduce you to two models of communication. The first one was the early communication research days. The second is where we've kind of evolved to. It's important because this is something that you should take away from this course. So I want to start with the linear. You're going to see a word in there. That word is line. Communication happened in a line. It's what we call asynchronous. And so I want to introduce you to some different communication situations or structures. Think 1940s, 1950s, a teacher, a classroom. Think a parent, a child, maybe a manager and an employee. Nearly 100 years ago, everything happened in a line. We had a sender, the person saying the message. We had a receiver, the person receiving the message. We had a channel, and that's what you choose. The channel is what you choose to deliver your message. So 100 years ago, it may have been mail or face-to-face, but we didn't have a lot of options, right? We don't have telegrams anymore, but we sure have a lot of ways we could send a message to someone. From sliding into their DMs, which my kids tell me not to say, to texting people or FaceTiming them or calling them or emailing them or sending them a message through Teams. We have lots and lots of options. I have students who can use a discussion board within Blackboard, but often they prefer to use GroupMe or they'll text each other. There are lots of different options that we have, but long ago we just had a sender, the person sending the message, a receiver, the person receiving the message, the channel, and then the message itself. Now, there's some things that intercept that message, but let me tell you this, that over time, we developed something called the transactional model. A guy named Watzlawick actually came up with this, and it got really messy. If you've ever worked somewhere, you've probably heard someone say, gosh, they're not a good communicator, or we have a lot of miscommunications here. I want to introduce you to some key terms that aren't rocket science, but they are fundamental to the communication process. When someone asks me, is that person a good communicator? I know that that person really sort of understands these terms, and they're also wise about the choices that they make in the process. So you'll see that word sender. That means the person talking. But what happens is the sender layers their message with meaning. They encode it, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. A good communicator asks themselves, what message did I add to whatever I did? So if I move my desk around, that sends a message to my students. If I walk in and don't make eye contact, that sends a message. I'm adding meaning, or what we call encoding, something to every message that I send. Being aware of that is crucial. But then on the other side of that, we have the receiver. That person is the person receiving the message, and they're decoding, which means they're trying to figure out the meaning of your message. You've probably heard someone say, I can't read your mind. But great communicators can begin to decode the messages that are being sent. We also added some key components, and that is noise. That simply means it intercepts the message. We have multiple kinds of noise. We have external noise, fans and lights, and someone chewing loudly in our ear, and someone pin clicking, and cell phones buzzing. We have external noise that can inhibit the message. It just means I didn't get what you said because of the noise going on around me. But then what we also have learned over time is that we have internal noise that prohibits us from connecting with other people, from hearing the message that they're sending, and for us really receiving it. And that internal noise looks like what I call the two P's. It's physiological and psychological. Physiological could be a headache, or I'm hungry, or I'm tired. That happens inside of my body. But psychological could be I'm worried, I'm fearful, I'm thinking about what maybe they're thinking. I have a lot on my plate, and it's taking up space in my brain. It makes it hard for you to connect through communication when you have a lot of internal noise. So it's important that we recognize this. We talked about channel in the linear model. We still have channels now. We have lots and lots of channels. But good communicators choose their channel wisely. They don't just text someone really important information. They also don't post it maybe on social media if they want to tell a best friend that they're pregnant. They choose a channel that communicates meaning. Finally, my favorite, and that's the feedback loop. when we talk about the communication model, it's so important that we understand that the only way to clarify information, the only way we can fully connect and fully understand is if there is a feedback loop. If I instruct a classroom of students, but I don't say, hey, tell me what questions that you have, and they don't ask those questions, we haven't established a feedback loop. Now, there's lots of communication research that gets pretty nuanced and is so fascinating to me about what would make you brave enough to ask a question, what would make you brave enough to maybe challenge a manager, or we call that a willingness to communicate. My job is to create a safe space where I reward feedback. In fact, feedback, whether it's positive or constructive, is only designed to make me better. If you believe that my feedback this semester is designed to help you become a better communicator, you'll hear it better. And I hope that you do, because without feedback, we cannot get better at communicating. So, we've talked about the beginnings, basics, those models. Here's what I want you to remember. Communication helps in every area of your life. It holds a deep, rich history. It didn't just happen in the last 100 years. We've been studying public speaking for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it has evolved over time. We're growing and we're learning as how we communicate and how much begins to change. So, I have a task for you now, and you're going to go in. You're going to complete a quiz and then complete a discussion board to talk about some of these things. So if you get to those assignments you don't understand, come back, watch the video. But I hope that this was helpful in your understanding of the beginnings and the basics of communication.